Welcome back to the Sunday Supplement. Very good morning to you. We've spoken about Liverpool and their American owners. United also, of course, have the Glazers in control. They announced debts, Neil, this week of 83.6 million. But David Gill, the chief executive, says no problem, no crisis. We can afford any player that Sir Alex Ferguson wants, and we're not selling anybody.
I mean, it was a remarkable piece of spin they put on it, because you had to read it about 3 times. It said, we've made record profits of 100 million. And by the way, we've also made a record loss of 80 million. And they're trying to claim, well, it's a one-off because of this, and it's a one-off because of that, and it's a one-off because we've redone this. They tried to claim a year ago it was a one-off, that the figures on them buying players was adjusted because they've sold Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, you'd sold the best player in the world. It is going to alter the figures. The point is that United is not far away from being a Liverpool situation, in that the debt remains huge, although they tried to half it from the 500 million and then the 256 or whatever is on PIC note debts. It's all basically, it's about 745 million pound in debt, and they are paying more interest on the debt, no matter how you add it all up, than they are on spending on footballers. They are no longer in the market for the best footballers in the world, despite saying we've still got 100 million in the bank. They're not buying them. They clearly needed to strengthen that squad this summer, and they didn't. And David Gill, who said debt is the road to ruin 4 or 5 years ago, now claims that debt actually isn't the road to ruin, as long as you have a bond issue and this, that and the other. The point is, Manchester United are being ruined gradually by the Glazers, and the only thing, a point that Danny made earlier, the only thing that is keeping this together is results on the pitch. Now,
and Fergie, probably.
And, well, Fergie is
the glue.
He's the glue that's keeping it together. And the results on the pitch weren't bad last season, but they still only ended up with the Carling Cup. The start of this season, they've dropped 8 points away from home. And Alex Ferguson will be gone within 2 years. And when he goes, if these buffoons are still in charge, then I'm afraid they're going to start slipping exactly the same way as Liverpool have started slipping.
If Ferguson is the man who sustains the Glazer regime, I mean, who's the strongest supporter? I mean, you know Manchester United very well. Who's the strongest supporter of the Glazers and the most explicit supporter of the Glazers? Alex Ferguson?
Well, David Gill is, and then Alex Ferguson also backs them up. In his defence, if he didn't, I think it would all fall apart. And I don't think he wants to see a club that he built up fall apart. So if he didn't back them, if he went against them, there would be all-out mutiny. He's the only thing keeping it together. I don't believe deep down he thinks the Glazers are the greatest thing for this club. I think his backing of them is sometimes too much when he could, you know.
But if he turned on them, there'd be chaos, wouldn't
there? Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want chaos. He doesn't want chaos at his football club. But these guys, just like Hicks and Gillette, just like JW the Fourth or whatever he's called, they did not come into Manchester United thinking, we want Manchester United to win 6 European Cups. They didn't come in for that reason. So they didn't come in for the reason Sheikh Mansour's come into Manchester City, for example, which genuinely is a plaything he wants to see do well, and it is all his money and nothing's tied into debt or anything. Or,
or fired.
You know, and these guys, right, the Glazers, they barely go to that many games, right? When Manchester United played Liverpool, I think it was last season, they were watching their American football team, and that was a key game in the league. They are not answerable to the fans. They are never questioned. They're not answerable to fans. They don't speak to the fans. David Gill, when the figures came out last week, chose to speak to the Financial Times and I think maybe one broadsheet. He refuses to be questioned on it, and the fans want answers, and he won't answer the questions.
Although the protest, which we've seen grow, has subsided slightly. You don't get it Old Trafford
anymore. It has subsided, but, and again, I think that's down to Sir Alex wanting the fans to, you know, let's support the team, let's get behind the team, and I think they answer those calls.
Out of respect to him?
Yeah, out of respect to him, and they will answer those calls to him. But I tell you what, if by Christmas they're 5th, if they go out the Champions League in the last day, that green or gold campaign will be in full voice by March.
I think talking about fans again, going back to emotions, I think there's a major arrogance from the United board, from David Gill, and in my opinion from Sir Alex Ferguson, towards the supporters of Manchester United. I think that Fergie, for starters, does a majority of what he says, and what his pronouncements about the club either come through MUTV or sanitised. He's not allowed to be asked directly about anything to do that's controversial with the club. If he does so, reporters like Neil are banned from the club. He has his own
I'm not banned from the club.
No, sorry, banned from press
conference.
conferences. Sorry, there's a number of journalists in Manchester that are banned from press conferences. The way that they portray stuff that he says, you can't get to him. You can't get to David Gill in the way that Neil's just explained. And David Gill went on radio last season, and I think maybe the season before. And this is the one thing which I think we have to hold him to. He quite clearly said that United have £100 million to spend on transfers.
He said it again, didn't he?
Yeah, at any moment they like, and they haven't. And they're not doing it. And that is what fans care about. That is what they want to know. It's what talks about. It's what we write about. And what they have to do now is follow this up. They have to show that they still are the big club, that everyone in the world believes them to be so, by buying the type of players, particularly with the likes of Gary Neville coming to the end of his career, Ryan Giggs coming to the end of his career, Paul Scholes coming to the end of his career. Why, for example, didn't they buy the Ozil, the young German, instead of him going to Real Madrid? Why didn't they get Van der Vaart? Why did they try and get Sneijder after only started doing well at Inter Milan? There is no projected, for me, really long-term transfer strategy that certainly is producing anyone of any note outside of.
Why didn't they? Why didn't they?
Well, because they haven't got the money, and they claim that there's no value in the market. But there's a value in a £7 million guy who they didn't see play. Who I tell you,
on video,
you just need to see him play to see whether he's worth £7 million or not.
How much is he worth?
70 grand, I think. I mean, I see him playing a couple of reserve games, and I think they've got the wrong guy.
You're talking about the way and I agree with what Danny said about that Ferguson is, taking the fans for mugs, basically. But
it's disgusting, I think.
It is, and I think that. But they, of course, and this goes back to what we were saying before about football fans and how doormatishly they behave, in that they cannot bear to face the fact that Ferguson's not. That Ferguson's version of the politics of Manchester United is different from that of 90% of the crowd.
Okay.
They can't, because of what Ferguson has done for that club, and there is no way you could exaggerate that, because he has become virtually indistinguishable. He almost is the club. They cannot bear what's actually happening at Manchester United, and the way he's sustaining the Glazers regime is the truth that they dare not face.
It's right. No, that's correct. But it is a truth that they're facing privately, though. I mean, a number of the staunch fans I see on who spend all their money, not on shares, but on pre-season tours and stuff like that. They are seriously worried. There's an underlying simmering huge amount of worry about what's going to happen to Manchester United, particularly with what's happening at Manchester City at the moment. There's a huge worry about the strength of the squad. They won't admit it. I think you make a good point. They won't admit it because they don't want to be seen to be weak. They want to be seen to. They want to still say we're the best. They want to still say we're the best in Europe. They don't want to admit it, but they know it's coming.
For the first time this year, I went to an early Champions League game. No, not Champions League, a league game. I think it was the Monday night Newcastle game. Coming back on from the ground, actually talking about the fans, there was infighting among the fans between those that were wearing green and gold and those that weren't. And there was those that considered them staunch, completely staunch fans were calling the others Norwich City fans, essentially, because of the green and gold. But there is. It's almost like no one knows what to do. Do we continue with this protest or don't we? Do we back Fergie or don't we? It's almost like they're in limbo at the moment, and they're desperately hoping that it all comes good on the pitch. Well, at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to. It's not when you buy people like Chris Smalling, who hardly ever played for Fulham before he got sold.
Only get worse because if we go down to 2016, 2017 or something, when the Glazers' debt then comes out, we're talking about Liverpool doubled and doubled again.